Top 9 vegetables that grow quickly. When you're starting an edible garden, it can be difficult to wait for your homegrown bounty to be ready for harvest. Produce such as tomatoes and peppers are notorious for long growing seasons. With all the efforts you put into your vegetable plants so that they show vigorous growth is understandable. But no matter how much you care, if they're slow growing, they won't grow fast. So you must go for those plants which grow quickly, and luckily you have come to the right place. Here is the list of 9 of the fast-growing vegetable plants. There are some fast-growing vegetables to tide you over while you're waiting for the rest of your crops. If you sow a few seeds every other week, you'll have a continuous supply of fresh produce from your garden all summer long. Here are 9 plants that you can start early in the growing season, then get ready to harvest your vegetables in about 8 weeks. Arugula. Arugula has a slightly peppery flavor that makes it delicious in a salad or as an alternative to basil pesto. Arugula is also sometimes called rocket, not because of how quickly it grows, but because the name is derived from the Italian word for the green, ruchetta. Sow the seeds directly in the ground, and cut the leaves when they're ready to harvest. Because its roots are relatively shallow, arugula can also be grown in container gardens. After planting the seeds, seedlings should emerge between 7 to 14 days. The arugula will be fully grown and ready to harvest in about 3 to 4 weeks. The earlier you harvest the leaves, the more tender and sweet the arugula will be. If you continue to grow arugula through the summer months, try growing it in a shadier spot, to prevent it from going to seed too quickly. Bok choy. Excellent way to extend the gardening season. As a cool season crop, planting bok choy in late summer allows gardeners to utilize garden space which is freed up when earlier crops are done for the year. Bok choy is frost hardy, so it continues to grow after cold weather has eliminated insects and pests. As a fall crop, bok choy care is simple. It can be direct seeded 1/4 to 1/2 inch, 6 to 13 millimeters, deep in rich, fertile garden soil. In areas where rains create saturated conditions, good drainage is recommended. Fall crops can be planted in full sun. Planting bok choy in small batches every 2 weeks will supply a steady and continuous harvest. Planting bok choy for a spring crop is more challenging. As a biennial, bok choy is extremely prone to bolting. This occurs when exposure to frost or extended temperatures below 50 degrees F10C is followed by a rise in temperatures. Winter conditions, followed by a warm spell, triggers bok choy into its second-year flowering stage. To prevent spring crops from bolting, try starting seedlings indoors 4 weeks before the final frost date. Use a quality seed starting soil mix into which bok choy seeds can be sowed to a depth of 1/4 to 1/2 inch, 6 to 13 millimeters. Then hold off transplanting bok choy into the garden until all danger of cold weather has passed. Space plants 6 to 12 inches, 15 to 30 centimeters, apart and mulch to keep soil cool and moist. To further discourage bolting when growing bok choy as a spring crop, try planting bok choy in partial shade and keep it well watered. Growing the smaller or baby varieties of bok choy can also help as they mature 10 to 14 days sooner than the standard size. Additionally, growing bok choy as a spring crop leaves it more vulnerable to pests, such as cabbage loopers, flea beetles and aphids. Row covers may be necessary in order to harvest blemish-free leaves. Broccoli rabe. It's a garden vegetable with a wrap sheet as long as your arm. This bad boy is also known as broccoli rabe, rapa, rapini, tatecat, an Italian turnip, and in some parts of the world, it's known as rape. Even in Latin, this villain plant can't catch a break. Some botanists label it Brassica rapa and others Brassica ruvo. Rabe is more closely related to the lowly turnips and mustards, and like turnip and mustard, its leaves have a somewhat bitter taste. It's quite popular in some areas of Italy, where it originated, but in other parts of the world, it's considered only good food for barnyard stock. Broccoli rabe planting is easy and it grows quickly enough that it can be planted directly into the garden. Seed catalogs recommend planting the seeds about 4 inches 10 centimeters apart, but the seeds are so tiny, it's next to impossible. Do your best and thin to 4 to 6 inches 10 to 15 centimeters when the seedlings are about. Don't throw those thinnings away. Snip off the roots and add the washed seedlings to your other salad greens. Broccoli rabe growing season begins right after the last spring frost and doesn't end until the first frost of winter. The key to growing broccoli rabe is to grow the smaller and quicker growing varieties and harvest early, and that brings us to another of this veggie's crimes. Cress. Cress is another unique green that is popular thanks to its peppery flavor and ease of growing. It's often grown throughout the winter as a delicious year-round microgreen. It's best to grow cress in a shallow tray that's lined with wet paper towels. Sprinkle the seeds over the surface and cover the tray with plastic wrap. The cress will germinate within a couple of days. Harvest as soon as leaves are about 2 inches in size. You can sow successively each week for continual harvest, but if you're growing outside, you may find the peppery taste gets too strong when the weather turns hot. Cress is another unique green that is popular thanks to its peppery flavor and ease of growing. It's often grown throughout the winter as a delicious year-round microgreen. It's best to grow cress in a shallow tray that's lined with wet paper towels. Sprinkle the seeds over the surface and cover the tray with plastic wrap. The cress will germinate within a couple of days. Harvest as soon as leaves are about 2 inches in size. You can sow successively each week for continual harvest, but if you're growing outside, you may find the peppery taste gets too strong when the weather turns hot. Mustard greens. Mustard greens are fast-growing, nutritious leafy greens. They're perfect for gardens and containers in both spring and fall. Although not quite as cold-hardy as their cousins, collards and kale, piquant mustard greens do tolerate a light frost, which makes their leaves sweeter. In areas where there are no killing freezes, gardeners enjoy growing mustard greens all winter long. The mustard patch is a pretty sight in the cool season garden. The leafy plants are easy to care for and good companions to fall flowers such as pansies. Mustard greens grow in a rosette of leaves up to about 1.5 feet tall. You can simmer the big peppery greens or pick smaller, young leaves to eat raw in salads and sandwiches. Mustard leaves grow fast and most tender in moist, rich soil. Sun is ideal, but because they make only leaves and not fruit, they are a little more tolerant of shade than fruiting vegetables like tomatoes. Mustard grows fast, so you can begin picking leaves in about 4 weeks, when the leaves are 6 to 8 inches long. Left alone, leaves reach their full size of 15 to 18 inches long in about 6 weeks. Always seems early when it's time to plant mustard, but it pays to plan ahead. For fall harvests, set plants in the garden 4 to 6 weeks before the first expected frost. In spring, you can start about 4 weeks ahead of the last frost date and continue planting a little after. Remember, optimum growth and flavor depends on moist soil. When plants grow under stressful conditions such as drought or heat, the leaves can become unpleasantly spicy for most tastes. Keep the soil evenly moist. Radish. Radish is a cool weather crop. Grow radishes in spring or fall for the best flavor and texture. Sow radishes in the garden 2 to 3 weeks before the average date of the last frost in spring. Sow succession crops every 2 weeks in spring and in autumn. Radishes require 22 to 70 days to come to harvest. Complete the harvest before the weather grows warm. In mild winter regions, grow radishes in late autumn and early winter. The radish is a hardy cool weather annual. Radish roots can be globe-shaped or long and tapered. Roots can be white, red, or black-colored. Radishes form a rosette of lobed leaves on stems rising from the root. Grow radishes in full sun or partial shade. Plant radishes in loose, well-drained soil. Remove soil lumps, rocks, and roots from radish planting beds. Obstructions can cause roots to grow malformed. Add organic matter to planting beds before sowing radishes. Radishes prefer a soil pH of 5.5 to 6.8. Radishes are a cool weather crop. Sow radishes in the garden 2 to 3 weeks before the average date of the last frost in spring. Sow succession crops every 2 weeks in spring and in autumn. 2 or more crops can be grown in spring. Radishes require 22 to 70 days to come to harvest. Complete the harvest before the weather grows warm. Warm weather can result in small roots. Long days may also cause radishes to flower. Plant radishes during the shorter days of spring and autumn. In mild winter regions, grow radishes in late autumn and early winter. Radishes can withstand frost. Spring radishes require 20 to 30 days to reach harvest. Winter radishes require 50 to 60 days to reach harvest. Radishes are ready for harvest when roots reach 1 inch across. Lift the whole plant when radishes are the right size. Lift a few or push the soil aside gently to decide if they are large enough to harvest. Do not leave radishes in the ground too long or they will become pithy. Turnips. Turnips grow and taste best when they come to harvest in cool weather. For a late spring harvest, sow turnip seeds directly in the garden 2 to 3 weeks before the average last frost date in spring. Sow turnips in late summer for autumn harvest, in early autumn for late autumn harvest, and in late autumn for winter harvest in reverse season regions. The turnip is a hardy, cool weather biennial grown as an annual. The turnip has a rosette of bright green leaves growing from a swollen, root-like base or tuber. Turnips are grown as a root vegetable or for their green leaves. Grow turnips in full sun or partial shade. Plant turnips in well-drained soil rich in organic matter with a soil pH of 5.5 to 6.8. Prepare planting beds in advance by applying garden compost and well-aged manure. Add sand or gypsum to heavy, clay soil or prepare beds by planting green manure and working it into the beds the season before seeding. Turnips are a cool weather crop that requires 30 to 60 days to come to harvest. Turnips grow best in temperatures from 40 degrees Fahrenheit to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 7–24 degrees Celsius. They are best harvested before temperatures exceed 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 24 degrees Celsius. Sow turnip seeds directly in the garden 2 to 3 weeks before the average last frost date in spring for a late spring or early summer harvest. Sow turnips in late summer for autumn harvest, in early autumn for late autumn harvest, and in late autumn for winter harvest in reverse season regions. Turnips come to harvest 30 to 60 days after sowing. Lift roots when they are 2 to 3 inches 5–7 centimeters in diameter, lift them carefully with a garden fork. Leaves can be cut when they are 12 inches 30 centimeters long, cut outside leaves first. Thin seedlings can be harvested for greens. Spinach, a super cold hardy leafy green, is a popular crop that can be planted in very early spring, as well as in fall and even winter. In some areas spinach has similar growing conditions and requirements as lettuce, but it is more versatile in both its nutrition and its ability to be eaten raw or cooked. It is higher in iron, calcium, and vitamins than most cultivated greens, and one of the best sources of vitamins A, B, and C. Spring plantings can be made as soon as the soil can be properly worked. In order to give spinach the required 6 weeks of cool weather from seeding to harvest, it's important to seed as soon as you can. Successive plantings should be made every 2 weeks during early spring. Common spinach cannot grow in midsummer. For a summer harvest, try New Zealand spinach or Malabar spinach, two similar leafy greens that are more heat tolerant. If you live in a place with mild winters, you can also plant in the fall. Wait to plant until soil temps are cool enough. Keep an eye on your plants. Harvest when leaves reach the desired size. Don't wait too long to harvest or wait for larger leaves, bitterness will set in quickly after maturity. The whole plant can be harvested at once, and cut at the base, or leaves may be picked off plants one layer at a time, giving inner layers more time to develop. Thank you for watching.